Thank you, Vijaya. Thank you for having me here.
Super having you on. And Ludka, delays are in the immigration world a bane for everybody. But with all of these delays, how does one really make an expedite request?
So you're right. COVID created a lot of delays and we're still dealing with it, even though government is trying to catch up. Sometimes there is a need. David was discussing medical needs. So sometimes the individual does need to expedite the matter. We do have premium processing for a lot of cases.
Yeah.
That's when you pay additional fee to the government and they will make a decision depending on the case, whether it's 2 weeks, whether it's 45 days, again, depending on type of the case.
Mm-hmm.
But majority of the cases, family cases and travel documents, you don't have that premium processing. So the only thing that the person can rely on is possibly doing an expedite request. There is no fee for that, but it's highly discretionary. And it's really important to know a little bit about it. You're right. We get a lot of questions from our clients about, employment authorizations, travel documents. They need to go back to India and so on. So this is question every day that we are dealing with. Now, what are the grounds? Because that's important for our listeners to know. Number one, that's really easy, a clear USCIS error. So for example, USCIS will issue work permit with wrong information and it was clearly their fault. So the individual can just refile the application, return the card, and request an expedite. That's an easy one.
Yeah.
You have government interests. If there is some issue that involves public interest, public safety, national interest, that would be the one. I don't see too much, but it's a possibility. Non-profit organizations, if they are requesting a benefit for foreign national in furtherance of cultural and social interests of the United States, that would work. Example, it could be a religious organization that is non-profit. Let's say they need a beneficiary and it needs to be expedited doing some important charitable work, for example, or a professor that needs to start teaching, something like that along those lines. More typical is another ground, which is emergency and urgent humanitarian situation. So it could be anything. Here you have your sickness, a relative or a family friend, death in a family. It could be some type of emergency in a country like armed conflict, natural disaster, and the person needs to expedite their matter. So it could be anything. And then lastly, we have severe financial loss to a person, to individual, or a company. So that we see quite often as well. What is the example? For example, job loss, like let's say the person will have to quit job because they don't have work permit anymore. That would be enough. Or the company, for example, we lose a doctor, let's say medical office will lose a doctor because the doctor's work permit is not approved yet. That would be huge loss for the doctor's office. So these are just examples. Now, what's the key?
Yes.
Supporting documents. It's really important for any of these to have supporting evidence. So for example, if it's a serious illness, we need a letter from a doctor regarding the condition. So for any of these, it's super important. Sometimes it's enough to have a personal statement explaining, I'm going to lose a job, my work, my EAD is expiring in 1 week, and this is just explain
the circumstances.
Correct. How does it really work? One can just call USCIS 1-800 number. Also, another option is doing EMA chat. That's the easiest. Place a request, and then usually they will request the documents. That's why it's important to have these documents ready. Or if people have USCIS online account, it's possible to do it through the account. That's probably the easiest, and then upload these documents right away.
Okay. So, is there a tab there which says expedite?
To expedite, exactly. But it's important that the individual has USCIS online account. So again, there is a possibility. It's just important to formulate it well under one of these grounds and even more important to have supporting evidence documenting or evidencing whatever the need or emergency, there may be. Sometimes it's not even an emergency. Like, for example, one of the things for travel document could be, like, for example, right now, I have a client who has been waiting for 5 months for a travel document, but
Wow.
has a really important business meeting in South Africa. So that would be sufficient. We have a letter, regarding that matter that was planned months ago. Unfortunately, because of delays, it's still not approved.
Yes.
So that could be sufficient. It's discretionary, but it could be sufficient. So it's definitely worth it to try.
Definitely worth it.
What can happen is that it will be denied and they will just continue regular processing.
Yes. What's the worst that can happen?
Exactly.
Well, thank you so much, Ludka, for clarifying that, and of course getting you fast and furiously into the immigration queue. If you are planning a temporary or a permanent international transfer to the US or Canada, NPC Law Group is here to help. They're also known as Visa Serve, and you can reach them at 201-670-0006 or just log on to visa